Dear students, in the previous lecture, I have explained the concept of human rights, the characteristics of human rights, and how this idea of human rights has evolved over a period of time. I have also explained the philosophical foundations of this idea of human rights. In today's lecture, we are going to discuss the institutions and mechanisms which are responsible for the protection, for the promotion of human rights within the United Nations. Dear students, first we would like to know what UN Charter tells us about the human rights. Dear students, as you know, that the United Nations was established in the aftermath of World War II with the primary objective of maintaining international peace and security. This idea of creating a global organization to prevent future conflicts, to promote cooperation among nations, gained momentum during the war as the devastating consequences of conflict became evident to the world community. The formal establishment of the UN took place on October 24, 1945, when the UN Charter was signed by 51 countries in San Francisco. The UN Charter came into force on October 24, 1945, therefore officially established the UN as an international organization. It is this UN Charter which provides framework for the UN's structure, functions, and principles. Dear students, as you know, the UN Charter outlines some purposes, some principles for this organization. The first purpose is to maintain international peace and security. Second objective is to promote friendly relations among nations. Third objective is to promote cooperation in solving international problems. Fourth objective is to promote respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. Therefore, one of the important objective, one of the important aim of UN is to protect, is to promote human rights. This establishment of the United Nations represents a historic milestone in international relations. It represents a commitment by the international community to collective action and multilateral cooperation in addressing global challenges and promoting common values. Dear students, the inclusion of human rights in the UN Charter reflected a recognition by the international community to protect, to promote the rights and dignity of all individuals. While the primary objective of the UN Charter is to maintain international peace and security, the UN Charter also affirmed faith in fundamental human rights and the dignity and worth of every human being. Article 1, Clause 3 of the UN Charter says that one of the purposes of the UN is to promote, is to encourage respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms for all without any distinction on the basis of race, sex, language, or religion. This provision underscores the importance of human rights as a core value and objective of the United Nations. The inclusion of human rights in the UN Charter laid the foundation for the subsequent development of international human rights law and mechanisms within the UN system. It affirmed the principle that human rights are universal, indivisible, and these are applicable to all individuals regardless of their nationality, regardless of their status. The UN Charter also established the Economic and Social Council, which was responsible for promoting universal respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. This Economic and Social Council played a key role in coordinating the UN's efforts in the field of human rights and supported the work of other specialized agencies and bodies of the UN. So, dear students, the inclusion of human rights in the UN Charter reflects a commitment by the international community to uphold the dignity, to uphold the rights of our individuals, and therefore laid foundation for the development of the UN's human rights framework. Dear students, first we will try to understand the evolution of human rights within the UN system. Dear students, the evolution of human rights within the UN system has been a gradual and ongoing process. It has been marked by the development of international norms, mechanisms, and institutions which aim to promote, to protect human rights worldwide. One of the earliest milestones in the evolution of human rights within the UN system was the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights UDHR in 1948. This UDHR was passed by the UN General Assembly. It established a comprehensive set of fundamental rights and freedoms to which all individuals are entitled regardless of race, religion, or nationality. This comprehensive document serves as a foundational document for the subsequent development of international human rights. After the adoption of this UDHR, the UN established a range of specialized bodies and mechanisms to promote, to protect human rights, including the United Nations Commission on Human Rights, which was before the United Nations Human Rights Council, and the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. So, over many decades, the UN has adopted many human rights treaties, many conventions, which are covering a wide range of civil, political, economic, social, and cultural rights. These conventions, these treaties have established legally binding obligations on the states to respect, to protect, and to fulfill the rights enshrined within them. The UN's human rights mechanisms have also evolved to include various monitoring and reporting mechanisms, such as treaty bodies, spatial procedures, and the Universal Periodic Review. while assessing the human rights records of all UN member states. So, dear students, we can say that the evolution of human rights within the UN system reflects a growing recognition of the importance of human rights as a cornerstone of international peace, security, and development. While significant progress has been made, but still there are many challenges in ensuring the effective implementation and enforcement of human rights worldwide. Dear students, now we are going to discuss the key bodies and institutions which are there in UN. As you know, the United Nations has established many bodies and institutions for promoting, for protecting human rights worldwide. These bodies play an important role in monitoring human rights violations, in investigating allegations of abuse, in providing assistance to victims, and in promoting awareness and adherence to international human rights standards. Some of the key UN human rights bodies and institutions are like United Nations Human Rights Council. The United Nations Human Rights Council is the primary UN body responsible for addressing human rights issues on global scale. It consists of 47 member states which are elected by the UN General Assembly. This Human Rights Council conducts regular sessions to review, to address human rights violations. It also oversees the Universal Periodic Review, which is a mechanism for reviewing the human rights records of all UN member states. Another key institution is Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. The Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights serves as the principal UN office responsible for promoting, for protecting human rights worldwide. It is led by the High Commissioner for Human Rights. This High Commissioner for Human Rights provides leadership, advocacy, and technical assistance in the field of human rights. It also supports the work of the United Nations High Human Rights Council and other UN bodies. It also monitors human rights situations around the world and provides guidance to member states on human rights issues. Another key institution or another key mechanism is treaty bodies. As you know that UN has established several treaty bodies. These treaty bodies consist of independent experts responsible for monitoring the implementation of international human rights treaties. These treaty bodies review periodic reports which were submitted by member states and issue recommendations and observations on compliance with treaty obligations. Examples of treaty bodies like Human Rights Committee, the Committee on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, and the Committee on the Rights of the Child. Another mechanism which UN has established for the promotion for the protection of human rights is special procedures. So, apart from the above key institutions and mechanisms, the UN also appoints independent experts, which are known as special representatives or working groups, to investigate, to report on specific human rights issues. Special procedures operate on a mandate basis. It addresses concerns such as freedom of expression, torture, indigenous rights, and the rights of women, children, and minorities. These special procedures also conduct country visits, issues reports, and engage with governments, civil society, and other stakeholders to promote human rights protection and promotion. Universal Periodic Review. This Universal Periodic Review is a unique mechanism which was established by the UN Human Rights Council to assess the human rights records of all member states periodically. Through a peer review process, each country's human rights situation is examined and recommendations for improvement are made by other member states. The Universal Periodic Review provides an opportunity for dialogue, cooperation, and accountability in addressing human rights challenges at the national and global level. So, dear students, these UN human rights bodies and institutions work collectively to advance the promotion and protection of human rights globally. Through monitoring, reporting, advocacy, and cooperation, these institutions, these bodies strive to uphold the principles of dignity, equality, and justice for all individuals. Therefore, contribute to a world where human rights are respected, protected, and fulfilled. Dear students, now let us discuss the functions and roles of key UN human rights entities institutions. First key institution within the UN is United Nations Human Rights Council. As I told you, the UN Human Rights Commission is the principal body within the UN system which is responsible for addressing global human rights issues. This Human Rights Council monitors human rights situations worldwide. It conducts investigations into alleged violations of rights. It also issues reports and recommendations based on its own findings to address human rights abuses. The UN Human Rights Council also oversees mechanisms like the Universal Periodic Review to review the human rights records of member states. For example, UN Human Rights Council conducts regular sessions where member states discuss and address pressing human rights concerns globally. For instance, it may convene a meeting to discuss human rights abuses in conflict zones or systematic issues like discrimination. Another is Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. This Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights is the principal UN office which is responsible for promoting, for protecting human rights worldwide. It provides leadership and advocacy in the field of human rights. It promotes adherence to international standards. The Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights also offers technical support to member states, national human rights institutions, and civil society organizations to strengthen human rights promotion and protection. It also monitors human rights situations globally. It conducts investigations, issues reports and recommendations to relevant UN bodies and member states. Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights also provides guidance and support to countries in drafting legislation to align it with international human rights standards. For instance, it may assist a nation in developing laws to protect minority rights or to ensure fair trial procedures. Another mechanism is treaty bodies. Treaty bodies are committees of independent experts which are responsible for monitoring the implementation of international human rights treaties. Treaty bodies review periodic reports submitted by member states on their compliance with treaty obligations. Some treaty bodies also have the authority to consider individual complaints alleging violations of treaty rights by state parties. Treaty bodies also issue general comments and guidelines interpreting the provisions of human rights treaties. For example, the Human Rights Committee reviews state reports on the implementation of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and issues recommendations to improve compliance. It may also consider individual complaints alleging violations of human rights. Special procedures. Dear students, special procedures are mandates appointed by the UN Human Rights Council to issue to address specific human rights concerns. Special procedures conduct country visits, gather information, and investigate human rights violations. These special procedures also issue reports on their findings, highlight areas of concern, and provide recommendations for action. Special procedures also engage with governments, civil society, and other stakeholders to promote human rights protection and accountability. For example, a special report on freedom of expression conducts fact finding missions to assess the state of freedom of expression in different countries. It publishes reports and engages with governments and civil society to address these challenges. These key human rights institutions and mechanisms work together to promote, to protect human rights globally through various mechanisms, including monitoring, reporting, advocacy, and engagement with other stakeholders. So, dear students, in today's lecture, we have seen that the United Nations has played an important role in promoting, in protecting human rights worldwide through its strong framework of institutions and mechanisms. From its establishment in the aftermath of the World War II, the UN Charter enshrined the importance of human rights alongside its primary objective of maintaining international peace and security. The subsequent adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948 marked a significant milestone which laid down foundation for the further development of international human rights law. Dear students, we have also seen that over a period of time, the UN has established various specialized bodies and mechanisms which are dedicated to advance human rights, including the United Nations Human Rights Council, the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, treaty bodies, special procedures, and the Universal Periodic Review. These institutions, these mechanisms work collectively to monitor human rights situations, to investigate violations, to provide assistance to victims, and to promote adherence to international human rights standards. Dear students, despite significant progress, challenges persist in ensuring effective implementation and enforcement of human rights standards worldwide. However, the UN's commitment to uphold the dignity and rights of all individuals remains constant. Through ongoing operation, advocacy, and engagement with member states and civil society, the UN continues to strive towards a world where human rights are respected, protected, and fulfilled for all. Thank you very much.